The first rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club.
For that matter, also the second rule says that you do not talk about Fight Club. But the famous film of David Fincher, 1999, based on the 1996 novel of the same name by Chuck Palahniuk, got and still gets oneself talked about. Today, the novel is considered a bestseller, but before the movie's opening, Palahniuk's book achieved poor success. In fact, it was the film to make Fight Club a cult, attracting many curious moviegoers to read the novel. So, it is legitimate to think that many more people know the film version rather than the paper one, but who met both can only be left satisfied. Published in 1996, Fight Club is the first novel as well as the most popular of the American writer and freelance journalist Chuck Palahniuk. Charles Michael Palahniuk was born in Pasco, Washington, on 21st of February 1962. His paternal grandfather was Ukrainian, while his mother had Russian and French ancestry. Chuck grew up living in a mobile home near Burbank, but when he was 14, his parents divorced, so he lived several years with his maternal grandparents. He graduated in journalism at the University of Oregon, and then he moved to Portland where, after a short period in a local newspaper, he decided to become a diesel mechanic. Meanwhile, definitively left journalism, Palahniuk became a volunteer in a homeless shelter and in nursing homes, providing transportation for terminally ill people and brought them to support group meetings. They are the same support groups that appear in his novel Fight Club and that will change his life forever. In fact, after the death of a patient to whom he had grown attached, he ceased volunteering and became a member of the group Cacophony Society of Portland, a congregation which inspired Project Mayhem in Fight Club. From what he says, he began writing fiction in his mid-30s. He started attending a writing workshop and publishing several stories, but without much success. To yet another refusal of his publisher, Palahniuk wrote Fight Club as a provocation. The idea was accepted, and contrary to what Chuck expected, the publisher decided to publish it. So, in 1996, Fight Club was printed. Coarse, but at the same time revealing novel, a history of violence, non-violence. We can defend it a kind of slap in the face to a generation increasingly duped by an increasingly consumerist society, as the pages themselves reveal. We don't have a great war in our generation or a great depression, but we do. We have a great war of the spirit. We have a great revolution against the culture. The Great Depression is our lives. We have a spiritual depression.
You are not your job. You're not how much money you have in the bank. You're not the car you drive. You're not the contents of your wallet. You're not your fucking khakis. You're the all-singing, all-dancing crap of the world.
In fact, the plot turns on the life of an employee, whose name is unknown, sleepless and unhappy, that seeks refuge in a support group, posing as terminally ill with cancer. There he meets Marla Singer. She is depressed too, or better, we can call her a hypochondriac, suicide, drug addicted. Like him, she is a daughter of a lost society. The anguished femme fatale will take part in a curious love triangle where our employee is a protagonist as well. Before meeting Tyler, the anonymous narrator has no interest other than his work, and he tries to be realized as a person through the typical consumerist tendencies. A chance encounter with Tyler Darden, waiter and night projectionist, or better, saboteur of films and dishes, as well as weapons and homemade explosive expert, will be a revelation for both of them. Together, they make soap and establish the first Fight Club, a group of clandestine struggle marked by secrecy, in which Tyler, charismatic leader, will soon have the total control. In fact, each participant does not fight against the man in front of him, but struggles with someone that only he knows, often with himself. The purpose is fighting to be spurred on, looking for an adrenaline rush to wake up from the lethargy that grips them. anesthetized, absorbing the world around them that flocks them to death. Meanwhile, Tyler continues his struggle to society, or at least to the consumerist aspect that characterizes it, creating a terrorist organization called Project Mayhem, with attacks on multinational companies' headquarters and people linked to the world of power. Then he disappears. Our employee, at first enthusiastic about his new life, is increasingly restless and frightened by the strangeness of his friend and by the turn that Fight Club is taking. The search for Tyler that he makes from east to west throughout the country has a shocking result. In fact, he discovers that Tyler Durden is nothing more than himself, whose ego has created a second violent and angry personality. The tragic end of the story shows a violent confrontation between the two Tyler. The good part has the upper hand, being able to understand that he can dominate the other, and that he does not need him to face difficulties. With this novel, Palahniuk offers to the readers a strong theme of the 90s. The contrast with society and the sense of anger resulting from the fall of the optimism prevailing in the 80s. Now there is a man who seemingly has it all, but actually he feels the need for something invisible to the eyes, but it is important for his soul. The need to be part of something more defined, which makes him free and unique. There is the idea, there is the anger, there is the will, but it lacks the spark. That spark that leads to the social struggle and that Tyler will trigger. A struggle against oneself, against the inner conflicts, against the ghost of the past. A physical struggle, an existential struggle, a struggle against corporations and capitalism. And this is the same spark that even the author will trigger. Through its minimalist and provocative style, Palahniuk takes the reader into a new awareness. He forces him to close the IKEA catalog, to leave the car at home, and to scream in the middle of a field proclaiming his own existence. In a trip through gloomy places, borderline personalities, and extreme situations, it appears that the sole purpose of hurting and getting hurt is to reach the bottom and then re-emerge victoriously. With short and defined sentences, marked only by points, and the use of exaggerated repetitions that make you feel the anxiety of the protagonist, the book hits you like a punch in the face. It hits you with an extreme realism that for a moment you think you are the anonymous employee, and the following second the mocking Tyler Durden. The same surprising realism was maintained by US director David Fincher in the film adaptation of the novel. After all, it could not be otherwise. Fincher is known for the violent content and the antisocial nature of the protagonist that give to its film such a realism that incorporates you into the screen. Perhaps Fincher is exactly the alter ego of Palahniuk, director version. No one better than him would have created the same drama or tension necessary so that the film did not disappoint the reader expectations. The movie, in fact, is a really faithful adaptation of the Palahniuk's book, although there are some differences. The decision to cut or turn some scenes deserves a separate discussion. In my opinion, when a director has to adapt a literary work, he makes necessarily some changes, because it is normal to have a different and personal point of view. As the writer, also the director is an artist, and as such, he has to personalize his work, otherwise it would be only a sterile copy. But a choice I did not like is the romantic ending of the film, in spite of the more bitter of the novel one. According to me, this weakens the sense of anger that conversely remains until the end of the book. Beyond that, the substantial difference is the ironic style used by Fincher, of which there is no trace in the novel. Palahniuk, in fact, uses a tone of despair without a shred of humor. Tyler Durden in the novel is described as an arrogant psychopath, while the movie's Tyler is an interesting character, almost an idol and a model to follow. Thanks to the visual component that makes the characters more credible and the physical aspect of the actors, even a crazy man like Tyler is appreciated if it is performed by Brad Pitt. Aesthetics aside, the choice of the actors for me was exactly right. Interpreters such as Brad Pitt, Edward Norton and Helena Bonham Carter rarely participate altogether in the same film. Despite these differences, many lines and dialogues were maintained identical, so they became real cult quotes. Surely, for those who first read the book and then watch the adaptation, disappointment is always great. But I must say that this time the surprise is pleasant. The transmitted message is the same, and above all, the key questions are the same. Could you live without TV, or even without a mirror? What do you think of yourself if you had never seen your face?